If you were living a thriving life, what would that look like? We kind of have this idea, and we're familiar with the language of sort of living in survival mode, just getting it done, that sort of thing. But we're less familiar. It's more of a vague concept of what we actually want instead. And there's a good reason for that. Our brains kind of get focused on this. It's called the negativity bias, and we focus on what we don't want. But I'm going to invite you for this little bit of time to think about what it would look like if you were living a life in which you were thriving. So, there's different parts of our lives, right? There's, our career, our home life, etc. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about when we pull this apart, what parts of life feel like we're maybe living a little closer to thriving in that area, and what parts feel like there's quite a big gap. So let's talk about this idea, and you can consider as I'm speaking, about these different areas. What area do you feel like is closer to thriving? What area it feels like it's further away? I'm Ann Bex, and I'm a mentor, catalyst, and guide for women leaders who want to disrupt the hustle to live and lead sustainable lives that they love. And I've been there. I know about this. Having been in a healthcare career for over 35 years, I focused in palliative care and critical care medicine. And then I burnt out. And there's nothing more that I would love than is to see women leaders thriving in their life. Not that doesn't mean you need to quit your job. I don't want you to get to burnout, and you don't want to get to burnout. But it's a sneaky thing to get to burnout, I'll tell you. So, but we're focused on thriving. There are other, YouTube videos. If you look me on YouTube, you can find me there. But that talk about things like burnout. But here, let's talk about thriving. So, our career is one place that many of us, as women leaders, we have worked really hard in our career. In fact, of course, there's lots of evidence to suggest that we have to work much harder in our career to get to the place that we envision ourselves, that we dream of, in leadership roles and whatever that looks like for you. And by the way, you may be a woman who is a leader at home, because I believe leader can apply, it's how we feel inside and the roles that we take. I also mentor leaders who are in career positions that are typically labeled as leaders. So, our careers, are you doing work that you love? For many of us, we could say, well, yes, I love the work. I did too. I had an amazing, amazing career. And I loved the work that I did with my patients and families. And there were other parts of the job, as in every job, I just want to acknowledge that isn't our favorite. And that's not what I'm pointing to, right? When we think about our work, is it work that we love? Great. The next question that might feel a little bit less like an obvious yes is, how sustainable is the way that I'm working? How sustainable is the work that you're doing for your life? And so when we think about that one, when I hear from my clients, this is the area where things start to really be like, oof, yeah, I'm tired. I've been working so darn hard doing the things that I do, and there's so many sort of demands on my time, and my responsibilities, what I'm accountable for. I don't know how sustainable this is. So just notice this sustainability part. Another piece that again might be a really big check for you is, I'm good at the work that I do. And I suspect many of you would be like, absolutely, I rock my work. I am an expert at my work. That doesn't mean that you don't have more to learn. No. What it means is I'm great at my work. You recognize your gaps. You know how to fill those gaps, and or you make referrals in the spaces that are not yours. You rely on your team members who can make up that space. But you are really good at what you do. Another area outside of our career, and then these questions are not meant to be exclusive because there's many other things, but I've given a lot of thought to these components. Is our sense of purpose. So another area of living a life that's thriving is our sense of purpose. There's been all kinds of research done on how purpose actually impacts our health, it impacts our longevity, our enjoyment of life, and hence it's part of this sense of thriving. So in this area of purpose, the sense that we're contributing to something bigger than ourselves. These are some of the questions where some of the, our idea of living a thriving life becomes a little vague. So you may not have sort of considered, am I contributing to something that is bigger than myself? And perhaps this sense of purpose, maybe it's in your work, but maybe it's in another part of your life. Perhaps it's raising your family. Perhaps it is some volunteer work that you do. But you're contributing to something bigger than yourself. Do you live and work according to your values? When I was asked this question, a few years back, I hadn't really taken the time to sit down and think, gosh, what are my top 5 values? What are the things that I really subscribe to? And you will find them. You'll find the thread that underpins so much. And some of those show up as a result of the things that we bump up against where we realize, oh my gosh, that is so not okay. So you may identify these values that you hold as the things that really pull you forward, but they also may show up in the places where you bump up against what is so not your value. When's the last time you've thought about your values? What do you truly value? And of course, values is this underpinning part of our lives that informs not just our career, but our home life. It's the way we are, our beingness in life. So when we think about living and working according to our values, one of the events that happened in my workplace, that I ended up working with someone who really tried to help me come to terms with the experience that I was having in the organization. And he said something really interesting to me that I still remember. It was so sort of clear and potent for me. Was he said, I'm surprised that you've made it this long in this organization because your values are so different. How many times do we see mission, vision, and value statements posted on the walls? And yet the experience, and it's perhaps things that we deeply value ourselves. And yet the experience inside of an organization, I'm speaking specifically of work now, is so different from that. And so, this question this observation that this person had for me, which was, wow, Anne, you have stayed in an organization for so long with disparate values. Like, how did you ever manage? No wonder you are where you are. This was destined to not work because of what you value deeply. Which was validating me. I'm like, oh, that's why it feels so wrong. It feels like a wrong fit. So what are your values, and are you living with them? Because if not, you bump up against the edge spaces that actually can lead to things like burnout, moral distress, all sorts of other things. And I'm going to do another talk about this too. But what are your values, and are you living by them? Living both in work and at home. Are you living congruently with them? If you're not, this is not about shaming. This is just about noticing. Because we can find ourselves moving away from for lots of reasons. The next question I have is, do you feel like you can be your authentic self, your true self in all facets of your life? Still under the heading of purpose. Can you be your authentic self, your true self in all facets of your life? This again is one of those questions you think, gosh, who is my true self? I'm not even sure I know, because there's so many things that I feel like have been layered over the top, and you're absolutely right. And this is the key to some of the work I do with my clients. We get to the truth of, oh, this is me. I recognize this me. This is me. This is me. And when I live from this place, it changes everything. We kind of clear away the dust and the dirt of who you think you're supposed to be, the conditioning, the stories, what culture says, what society says, what you're epigenetically sort of primed for, nervous system driven activity. We get rid of that. We get rid of it, or, drill down through that. Find our true selves. Oh, this is me. So can you be your authentic self? And if you are, here's what it feels like. It feels like truth. It feels solid. It feels kind. It feels soft, but strong. It feels boundaried, not because you're trying to erect boundaries, but because you're just clear about who you are as an expression of life itself, as a unique human. This is who I am. Without, pushing away my personality traits, my ego, any of that, but including it all and saying, yes, this is me. I'm not perfect, but at my core, who I am truly is actually this expression of life that life is inviting me to every day, to follow the nudges that are my yeses, the delightful things that are a yes for me, the things that are like, actually, no, that's not for me. Not from a defended place, but just from the truth of who I am. So that's what it feels like to be living from your authentic self. The last piece of this purpose is I'm in love with the life that I'm living. Now, just an aside, because the familiar chatter that comes up is, well, sometimes. But what I want to say about this is, in love with the life that you're living, the life that is living through you. That doesn't mean that there aren't hard times. But what it means is that you bring this true self to these hard times. It doesn't mean you don't feel grief and anger and shame and fear. No, but what it means is you see it and you bring you to it. I'm in love with life. Shame and fear and anger and rage and all of these things are part of the aliveness of life. Am I in love with the life that I'm living? The next category or piece that I'd like to talk about in our way to living a life that is thriving is a question about, do you have a nourishing romantic partnership? If you desire, because not everyone does, and that's totally okay. But if you are in a relationship, is it one in which you feel seen, heard, loved for you, yourself, your truth? Nourishing, romantic, feel like you are You can be you inside of this relationship. How about, can you relate to your family in a way that feels true to you? Being honest, just coming from your truth of like, actually, this is what's true for me. This is, we're all individual people in families. And yet this gets really sticky, doesn't it? Relationships in general is often where things get kind of wonky in our life. That doesn't mean that we don't disagree, but it's often tied with judgment, right? Like, if you disagree with me, there's something wrong with you. Or the deeper thing is that means there's something wrong with me. So, can you relate to your family in a way that feels true to you? Do you have a relationship with your extended family that you appreciate, that you desire? Or are there places where you don't speak to people and you don't have a relationship? And again, this is coming from this true place, right? This is not, I'm not suggesting in any way that people should be staying in relationships that are not healthy, etc. But are you in relationship with your family, your extended family, in a way that you desire, that you appreciate? How about with your friends as another component to a thriving life? Do you have deeply nourishing relationships with your friends in which you can totally be yourself? So for lots of women, they find connecting with other women a really nourishing experience. I also know in my own experience, and I wrote a post about this recently, is that in my quest, because I was so sort of career focused, my relationship sort of fell to the back when I was thinking about this. I thought, gosh, I had really let slip friendships, and something that happened the past couple of years was a really beautiful, dear woman friend that I had been so sort of focused in what I was doing that, although, I knew she was there and we occasionally connected and it was always beautiful, she died suddenly. And to this day, I still feel this loss. She lived life, was so vibrant, so vibrant. And I feel this loss. And it really brought to my attention of, gosh, friends are a really important part of our lives. There's lots of research about friendships too, about how much they mean to ourselves, to life, to an enriched life. Do you have deeply connected, nourishing relationships where you can be yourself? Speak your truth. Your truth can be held, witnessed in kindness, be seen for who you are. Your opinions valued. Can you express yourself honestly with your friends? Another aspect is about your physical health and well-being. So many people, I saw these people in my healthcare practice. And I relate to this too, because I also had my version of this. I ran races, I exercised, injured. I had a team of people that were sort of helping me to get to the point where I could run the race. I worked out, I was overtraining, all in the name of stress management. And I look back on it now and I think, oh my gosh, I was doing the thing. I knew what I was supposed to do. I'm supposed to exercise and eat well, all of which I was ticking the boxes. And my exercise, I said, that's for relaxation. But I was actually sort of beating myself up, my physical body up in the process. So here's the thing, the question to ask yourself. Am I happy with my physical health and wellness? Do I feel vibrant and well in my body, in my experience? Am I dieting because I don't like how I look, restricting my food? Am I Am I using perhaps substances that really can help me to relax because I don't know how else to do this? No shame. But I find myself having a couple of glasses of wine a night just to help me unwind and relax. These are the questions that you can consider with curiosity, not with judgment. I really encourage you not to be, don't be judgmental about this. This is an exploration. Do you feel like you're living with a background experience of happiness, of joy, a background sense of okayness, that life is good? Do you feel whole and enough? And this one might bring that bit of clench for you, because so many of us have, things that the whisper we hear in the middle of the night when we're awake and our thoughts are spinning of I'm not enough, I'm not good enough. Do you feel whole and enough? And finally, this last section of part of a thriving life is around personal finances. And that might immediately bring this, oof, gosh, don't talk about money. In fact, so much of our society is cloaked around talking about our personal finances. And I'm not suggesting you need to go out and share your personal financial situation, but money is a really sticky thing for most of us. Money represents for most of us an issue of safety. Is your financial status something that you are comfortable with, that you feel like I have enough? I have enough to live the life that I desire. I have enough. I have the financial resources to live my life comfortably, and what that means for me. If that means travel and staying in beautiful, luxurious places, awesome. That's okay. And I am not a financial analyst or financial advisor by any means, but I have done a lot of my own work around finances. And I have a beautiful, beautiful person. So if you're listening to this and you think, oh my gosh, it's something I want to learn more about, because finances for me was like, let somebody else look after it. And I don't want to know because I think it's too much to know. I would need a whole financial degree. That is totally untrue. That was a myth. And that myth for me is busted. So, but what I want to say is finances, feeling like we have sufficient to live the life that we would want to live comfortably, is part of a thriving life. So these areas that I've spoken about, our career, our sense of purpose, family, friends, physical health and well-being, and personal finances, are areas that can sort of form the basis of our thriving life. So if you're still, thinking about all of this, I'd invite you to take the Thriving Life quiz, and I'm going to put the link if you're here in Facebook or LinkedIn. I'm going to put the link in the comment and do the quiz. See where you fall in this place, in these questions. And again, approach it with curiosity, not with judgment. If you're on YouTube, look in the show notes and you'll find the link to the quiz there. It's free, but it's about getting sort of present to where you feel like you are, because we can know what we don't want. We can feel like, oh my gosh, I'm in survival mode and I don't want that. But what we have less clarity about is what we do want and what a thriving life looks like for us. So I'm going to invite you to take that quiz, and see where you fall. Get curious about it. One of the statistics that really sort of hit home for me. And my background is in critical care medicine and palliative care medicine primarily. And here's something that's really quite startling. 75% of people arrive at the end of life with the regret that they did not live true to themselves. Rather, they lived a life others expected of them. Where are you in that? Are you living a life true to yourself? This is what this thriving is pointing to, because thriving for me is going to be different for you. So I invite you to explore, what does it mean for you to live a thriving life? And then how can you move the needle in that direction? And I have to say, yes, there can be big transformational things. But many times it's the small things that you've already done that are moving you in that direction. You maybe haven't found sort of the yet. And I would say for many of my clients, the work we do together is that little that is like, oh, right, here's the thing. But it's made up of tiny hinges that swing big doors. And that is not, I did not coin that phrase. A mentor of mine, Jen Kem, shared that in one of the programs that I was working with her in. So anyways, I invite you to take the Thriving Life quiz and get curious in your own life. What would it look like to live a life that is thriving? Okay, so great to chat with you, and I always love to hear from you. Okay, take care.